Hi guys, I'm Donna from talkfeelchange.com, and today's vlog I'm going to discuss how I use transactional analysis in a couples therapy session. If you haven't watched my previous video where I discuss some of the basics behind transactional analysis, maybe it's a good idea to check that one out first so that the rest of this video makes sense. Okay, and if you have watched my last video, let's just do a quick recap. According to transactional analysis, we have three main ego states which we constantly are shifting between when we're speaking to people. And these three ego states are the parent, the adult, and the child. When we speak to people, we normally form complementary transactions, which are reciprocal patterns that we often keep repeating with the same people again and again and again in our lives. We can also have a crossed transaction, which is when the arrows are actually crossed, and this usually causes a shift in the other person's ego state, and that shift will form a new complementary transaction, which we will probably replay with that person again and again and again in a stable way. Like I said in my last video, this is only an outline of transactional analysis and not all there is to know by any means. But I still think it's really valuable, and I think a lot of these skills are very transferable to our own lives. So I think this will still provide us with a lot of insight. Okay, so using what we already know about transactional analysis, or TA from now on, let's have a look at how I would use this in a couples therapy session. One of the things that I try and focus on is to try and identify some of the complementary transactions in a relationship. And while this might seem kind of insignificant at first, I've often found that it's the same pattern dressed up in a different way that causes the same squabbles over and over and over. And I treat these patterns with a lot of importance because I find that they play out so many times in a relationship. So if we are able to work together to resolve a complementary transaction that has been negatively affecting the relationship, then we haven't just changed one small thing. We've changed a whole pattern that has been playing out in the relationship. Okay, so let me give you an example of a complementary transaction that I've noticed playing out in relationships, and I'm not going to base this on any clients in particular in order to keep all my clients' confidentiality. So let's look at a therapy session where a couple come to me and they are speaking about a vacation that they went on recently, and during this vacation they ended up having quite a few fights. And while they're telling me about their vacation, I notice, let's just call her girlfriend for simplicity's sake, okay? So I noticed girlfriend saying quite a few things like, which was really overpriced, or which we didn't really need, but boyfriend really wanted. And from that I can see that girlfriend probably has quite a different attitude towards money from boyfriend, and it's possible that these conflicting attitudes may have added to the fights during their vacation, either on a conscious or even an unconscious level. So I might bring the focus of the conversation to one of the times when the girlfriend mentions the price about something. And I want to focus on this complementary transaction that comes across when this couple spends money. And so I might ask each partner to explain how they feel in that situation. And I might say something like, girlfriend, you mentioned that it was really overpriced, and how was that for you? And she might respond with something like, it was really difficult. We both work really hard to get our money, and I really don't like spending it on frivolous things. Now, it's really important for me to emphasize that I focus on the relationship. I'm not here to be a judge. I'm not here to participate in a blame game. I'm here to help both partners reflect on how the things that they say and do impacts the relationship. Neither partner is necessarily right or wrong about how they spend their money. That is not my concern. What I'm interested in here is how spending money affects the relationship. I'm sure that boyfriend has a perfectly reasonable explanation for why he chose to spend that money, but let me say again that I'm not a judge, and so I'm not just listening to both people's responses and then deciding who is most correct or who I agree with. If I were to do something like that, it would cause this couple to become very dependent on me and need me to be there to facilitate all their discussions and resolve their problems for them. My job is to help the couple to resolve these problems and to create real change in their relationship that's actually lasting and impactful change. So before I even ask boyfriend to tell me about how his experience was of spending the money, I would probably ask him something like, how was that for you, listening to how girlfriend felt about the money? Was this something that you were aware of? Is it new information for you? How was that for you? And we might learn that boyfriend actually had no idea that girlfriend felt this way about spending money. In which case I would ask the girlfriend to tell us a little bit more about how it was for her. And she might say something like that she hates being the fun stopper and feeling like the responsible, boring one who always feels bad about spending money in the relationship. I might then turn the focus back to boyfriend and ask him about how he felt during this vacation when he was spending money. And he might say something like, he actually feels like he is the one responsible for making sure that they have the things that they need in order to lead a comfortable life, and that he feels responsible for getting these things. And perhaps even he found this vacation was a necessary lifesaver to get the relationship back on track. And so that's why he was doing the spending. And that actually he was doing, when he was doing the spending, he felt a bit reprimanded, and he felt like he was being naughty or wasteful. But in fact, he was acting in line with what he thought was necessary and very, very important for the relationship. Okay, so if we go back to what we learned in the last vlog about TA, we can see that girlfriend is acting from the parent ego state and that boyfriend is acting from the child ego state. And that this has caused a complementary transaction that has probably repeated in this couple's relationship just about every time that the issue of money is raised. And clearly this transaction is not having a good effect on this relationship. Now that we have some more insight into how this pattern plays out in this relationship, we can move on to looking at the impact of this. And being in a relationship where you feel like a fun stopper or you feel reprimanded does not have a good impact on the relationship. It is not helping either of them to grow or to thrive in this relationship. I might then explain some of the different ego states, or I might just point out that there seems to be a bit of a parent-child dynamic which seems to feel quite uncomfortable for both of them. Or we might go in the direction of speaking a bit about how each respective partner's families treated money while they were growing up. Each relationship is so unique, and so exactly how we would tackle this next step really depends on the relationship at hand. But basically, what I would end up trying to do is to try and to help this couple try and resolve this dynamic and help them to move towards a more adult-to-adult transaction, which they can turn into their new complementary transaction. And as I discussed a bit in my last vlog, a lot of adult-to-adult transactions often involve things like compromise and respect and maturity. And in this case, it might mean that both partners might have to adjust their attitude to how they treat money in this relationship, which of course is no simple task. An important thing to note here is that the attitude towards money is what we're focused on changing. Whereas if I had just sat and listened to each partner's reasons for spending money or not spending money and acted like the judge, and if I had just agreed with one of the partner's approaches towards spending money, then both of their underlying attitudes, which were actually very conflicting, wouldn't have changed. And they would have left the therapy session, and this complementary transaction would have just continued throughout the relationship as soon as they left the therapy session. So then we could move forward and try and figure out how they can both form an attitude towards spending money based on an adult ego state, And again, it would really depend on the couple and how they work together with money, whether they live together, whether their money is pooled, and their own attitudes towards money. It depends really on their situation. But basically, we can look at what they can agree on would make a comfortable life and what they really want and need. And most importantly, we could look at how each partner could change their reactions to stop making the other one feel like a parent or a child. So to build up that adult to adult connection. And we'd work on this until an adult to adult transaction is really achieved and they feel that they connect with each other from that adult to adult way. Okay, so I'd like to finish today by looking at this couple and using this example to explain why my practice is called Talk, Feel, Change. Basically, in a couples therapy session or an individual session, clients go through the process of talking, feeling, and changing. Okay, and so in the example that I spoke about with this couple, they started by talking about their vacation and about their experiences of spending money. And then we also focused on how spending money made each person in the relationship actually feel. And by hearing how it made the other person feel and working towards gaining a more adult to adult transaction and changing their own attitudes towards money, it helped each partner to really change in the relationship. And that's why it's Talk, Feel, Change. And that's a very quick, simple breakdown of therapy, is to talk, feel, and change. Okay, so basically that's how I might work with a couple using transactional analysis. And I hope that you found some insight from that. And if you feel that you and I could work well in a therapy session together, or if you know of someone else who might benefit from that, then please get in touch with me at talkfeelchange.com. Thank you very much. Cheers for now.